Hey everybody, welcome back to American Homestead. I want to thank you guys for joining us today with Angorajane Deason. She's going to teach us how to spin fibers. We're going to take fibers from what she has and make them into actual yarn. I want to thank you guys for joining us and sit back and enjoy a little bit of this class.
The American Homestead.
Okay.
All right, so you're going to put your feet on the pedal.
All right.
You want it to be comfortable, so
Okay.
if we need to scoot it out a little bit, we can.
Maybe just a touch.
Okay, and when you are moving your feet, you don't want to lift your toes. Now, just come back.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you're fine. Okay, so we're going to go clockwise,
Okay.
and you're going to hang on to it right there.
Okay.
And see how it's twisted?
Uh-huh.
It's really tight. So then you're going to share, and you're going to let this slide. This is yarn, so you can get the feel of it.
Okay.
My granddaughter came up with a little song, and as you're, ooh, that's a great speed. You go 1, 2, 3, I said, and you share.
Okay.
So
1, 2, 3, and then let it go
share.
in.
And then, yeah. Don't
Oh,
quite
don't.
come back so fast.
Okay, sorry.
You want to, you know when you put your fingers in the feed
Uh-huh.
and how it just kind of glides through there?
Yeah.
That's what you want to go through. You don't want to death grip, but you're letting it share a little bit too fast. So you
Okay.
want to put a little tension on it.
Oh, a little more tension.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, feel it twisting in your hand?
Yeah.
Slow your feet down. You're going to the horse races. It's all right to go fast, but your hands have to keep up with your feet, and that's
All right.
that's a little difficult to do.
See, that's something that I've always wondered, because when you start this, you start with a raw material, correct?
Well, this is yarn, but what she's doing over there, and you can pan over there and show her pretty soon.
This is fleece. I've sheared this right off the sheep, and I'm doing it old school or in the grease.
It's not
they
even
call
washed.
it in the grease.
Oh, wow.
This is not washed. This is not anything. What you're spinning is processed and clean and easier to learn on.
Okay.
Okay, so you've got that. So the yarn was just to get the feel of it.
Okay.
So we break that off and start. Wool has natural barbs on it, so it's going to attach itself. And we have to move this over every once in a while so it doesn't get too high.
Okay.
So you want to hang on to it right there.
Okay.
We're going to start this again. This is going to be a little more flighty.
Is there a certain width I want it?
Well, this is already drafted, so you don't want to let it go too fast.
Okay.
See how it was almost not spun there?
Yeah.
All right. You're more of an incher. And what that means is you come back a little bit and you go in a little bit. And that's how I spin.
Okay.
So, see, don't let it go too fast.
Yeah.
Just wondering where
So it needs to go to about there?
yeah. See, feel how
then-
that, and then, yeah. And then hang on to it until, I wouldn't go quite back that far.
Okay.
I forgot to bring a bowl of water for
Okay.
or a bowl and then
And see how it's twisting? I like to use the color because it's easier to see than a solid.
Oh.
And that
See,
just
and that
didn't
begins my problem there when I break it like that.
Well, but it has the natural barbs on it.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
we're
I'll
just
go
going to
see
string it on here.
those bowls over there.
Okay.
So we're going to start again. So you're going to put your feet back on the pedal.
Okay. Back on the pedal.
You're going to hold it there, and we're going to let it
That way.
twist. You're
So you want that to
twisting,
twist all the way
Right.
around.
and then you just share a little bit.
Okay.
Slow your feet down just a little. There. Perfect. Oh, I shouldn't have said
See, and that's where
perfect.
my problem is figuring out how to do this. I let go too much.
Well, you are one of the
Oh,
rare
look,
people.
I bound it up in there. It's like when I go
Most-
fishing.
No, most people hang on to it too long.
Oh, really?
And it gets all, yeah. Or they'll share and then they pull it back out and spin it over and over and over. And that makes it really gnarly.
Oh, wow.
But when you first start spinning,
So what will that make? Like
This is it would be considered a single ply of yarn.
and see if we
This
want to see
is
what it
just
looked like plied
wool.
with
This
just two
is- I
strands
sheared this
together.
off the
Okay.
sheep.
That's what it would look like.
So in this point
And
right now, we're
I'm doing
making
it like
a
I did
single strand.
We're making a single.
And if you
So-
rack it up, I'll
So
take
we
two
take
bobbins
this
of
around.
these, ply it on itself, and I will end
Okay.
up with a 2-ply yarn.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Guys, you're doing great. Look at that, Christy.
Awesome.
I haven't broke it yet in a few minutes, so.
What are you making, Shane?
Just yarn?
Yarn. I'm gonna knit a sweater. That's right.
It takes 2 pounds of wool. Each one of those things over there is 4 ounces. So it would take 8 of those spun up and plied to make a sweater that would fit her.
Really? So how long does it take usually you to do a roll?
I timed it one time to make a pair of socks. A pair of socks that just goes over your ankle. Not preparing the fiber, just spinning, flying, and knitting the socks. And it took me 40 hours.
40 hours?
To make a pair of socks that just go over your ankles. So back in the old days, you stop and think they had 2 sets of clothes.
Right.
1 set of clothes for Sunday, and their other clothes. And that's because it took so long. So if it takes 40 hours to spin and knit a pair of socks, think how long it would take, because they wore a lot more clothes back then.
Yeah.
And they wore layers of clothes. So you had to spin it, you had to weave it, you had to cut it out, and then you had to hand sew it. So it takes quite a while.
And so how long have you been doing this?
Over 25 years.
25 years?
25 to 30 years, somewhere in my neighborhood.
And what got you started in it?
I had always thought it was really cool. And I went out to the Tulsa State Fair, and they had a lady that sat out there and spun. And I finally found someone, actually less than a mile from me, that taught spinning and learned how to spin. And years later, the lady that originally inspired me, I taught her daughter how to spin. Yeah.
So where do you get the equipment from?
These are Ashford wheels, and they are made in New Zealand.
Okay.
That's a Louette wheel, and it's made in Holland. There are some wheels that are made in the United States, but they're a little pricier. These start out at right at $500.
500?
And you can go on up to, some of the spinning wheels are over 2,000. So it just depends on what you want. You can use a drop spindle, which is just this is a drop spindle, and you do it by spinning on that. Christy does that really good. I drop really well.
Okay.
Christy, why don't you get right here so you can get in the camera.
This is what they taught when you were taught all those years ago when they taught somebody to spin a top. They were not. They were not teaching them to play. They were teaching them to spin. The children were the spinners on the drop spindles, because unless you were rich, you did not have a wheel. So you're going to spin it.
So that's how they did
it. This is how they did it back in the 1800s. You know, you see these walking wheels that came on the old wagon trains, and that was rich. That was those were family prized heirlooms, and not everybody had them.
I'll stop you for a minute and move it over.
Okay.
So
a lot of the kids.
Oops. Oh, I broke it.
We're watching Christy.
That is unacceptable.
It's the third time I've done that.
Oh, he's doing
It's
great.
fixable.
Yeah.
With wool, you'll find
She said I'm doing okay,
everything's
Candace.
fixable.
He's doing really good. Candace, we can set you down here.
Yeah, you sit down, let's talk some crap, get over here and start spinning.
Oh, I'd probably break it
Oh,
too.
see, I threw a rod.
No, I did that. I did what I was going to tell you not to.
No, I find this very interesting.
It's very restful. I had
It
a
is, it's
stressful
kinda-
job when I worked,
It's
and
kinda
I can
peaceful.
talk and spin, but I can't think and spin.
All right, so we got it back.
Yeah, and when you start it, you want to put in here, use your feet, and what I did was I grabbed it right there, and that broke it.
Okay.
Wait a minute, I got it.
Sorry.
I had 2 sugar, and one day I woke up and the damn thing was in my mouth. It was bleeding the next day.
He's been doing it. I messed him up.
Don't let her lie to you. It was my fault.
But the big walking wheels that you see, you usually see a bunch of kids standing at the end. They don't have a foot pedal on it.
Really?
And it was the smaller kids that couldn't spin or couldn't do anything on the farm. It was their job to keep that spinning wheel going, because they were standing at the end of the wheel, so they had to keep it going so the woman could keep spinning.
Oh, we need. How are you?
All right, put your feet back on.
Okay, back on. All right. So do I need to
I'm gonna
fix
let
that? Okay.
No, good old-fashioned spit works good.
Ah. Are you? Oh, I'm bunching up here.
All right, just let go.
I'm spinning. I'm gonna make some yarn. You want a sweater?
Hang on to it, you're not.
Oh,
Gotta share.
I got too far, didn't I?
Yeah, that's all right. They messed you up.
They're distracting.
Hang on to it. Hang on to it.
I keep giving it away.
You're doing great though.
There we
Let
go.
it twist.
Wasn't letting it twist long enough.
Yeah.
So this here, what I'm doing here, what is that from? It's already been done once, or is that?
No, this is pencil roving, and that is roving over there.
Okay.
This is just already what they call drafted. And
Dang it, did it again.
well, we were talking.
That's
and
right.
It's all the same size. See, if
Okay.
I was like this is a piece of roving.
You're not going to do it right. Just get up.
And when you're spinning,
The next thing I was waiting for.
I like to pre-draft a little bit, where
Okay.
see I'm pulling it out like that.
Right.
And then as I'm spinning, I draft it even a little bit more. And see, I'm making it basically the size of what you were doing.
Okay.
Your yarn, the size of your yarn depends on how much is going in your hand. So if I didn't draft that at all, that's going to make a much bigger yarn.
Okay.
And you can make as big a yarn as you want as long as it goes through this
Through
little
that hole?
orifice. So it has to go through that hole in order to make yarn. And this would be, that would be a thick as thin.
You also can make it so thin that it's thread.
Right.
Really?
Thread is actually yarn
It's just
with a
been.
smaller diameter. That's because you know when you do thread, it's got all those little things you twist together. You
Right.
wait to put okay. So those are the plies.
Okay.
So thread is nothing more than a small, microscopic ply
Yeah,
yarn.
see, I can make this. Why?
Oh wow. Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a lady one time that spun really thin, and she would have to ply like 10 of them together in order to get a decent sized thread. You
Oh, no
almost had to
kidding.
put your hand behind it to see it while she was spinning.
Wow.
And it's like, why? The longer you spin, the thinner your yarn will get.
Oh,
so
really?
I had to go take classes to learn how to spin thicker, because after you start spinning and you spin more and more, then it gets thinner.
Okay. And so when you spin, when you set out, do you have something in mind when you start, or do you just do it
Not
to make the yarn?
occasionally I do, but usually I've got buckets and buckets of hand spun yarn at home, and so and I've got all this here. So if I want to make something, I just go dig through what I've got. But there are people that only spin for a certain project, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, it's just whatever. There are no rules.
And that's one of the things that this, to me, is an art that people have lost over time. My generation and the generation before mine really has no idea, because we're so used to, after the Industrial Revolution, everything being made by machine, and people have lost the ability to go back to doing it by hand.
Right,
And I
and it's
think it's
very
critical.
therapeutic. I have one of my spinners that lost a relative tragically, and I had given her a fleece, and she told me the only thing that kept her sane was processing that fleece,
Yeah.
because she was trying to process what had happened, and so that kept her busy
Focused.
rather than just to sit and grieve. It just helped her to work through the
Exactly.
process.
Exactly.
So it's very therapeutic, and like I said, with the wool, you can make wool hats, you can make felted shoes. There's just no limit to what you can do.
And see, that's one thing that, you know, we like to do, is try to focus on things that, as a lost art, things that, you know, one day people need to learn again, because if we don't have people like you teaching these things, then the generations that come after us aren't going to know how to do it. And should, you know, something happen one day, who's going to be there to make stuff?
Right.
You know?
In Europe, they've been doing this a lot longer, but there's a couple of people that are developing where they use the wool for stuffing in furniture. And there is a place in the United States where you can get insulation that's wool if
Really?
you're insulating your house.
Oh, wow.
Because it doesn't burn. It will singe, but it won't flame.
Really?
So
Yeah,
if
it's still used today in your transmission because it's the only thing that can take the heat of that transmission and not catch on fire.
Wow.
So there's
Yep.
still a lot of uses for wool. It's just that they're not as publicized.
That's
and
commonly,
stuff.
yeah. So what is the ideal fiber to use?
Oh,
What is your ideal fiber to use?
It depends on what you're making.
Okay.
What, ideal fiber for what?
It depends on what you want. Like I
What's
raised.
the best? What's the easiest one to start with?
Well, it depends on who you are.
For me.
Well,
This.
you are spinning. What this is there's a place where I get that from, and what they do, it's a mill, and they have all the people in the area bring their white fleeces and they dump it all together. So it's all different kinds of sheep. There are certain breeds of sheep that are bred for softness, and they're good for babies.
Okay.
There's caracal. What's the other rug sheep?
empirical.
Oh my God, that Navajo
Navajo
churro.
churro. It's
That's
like
what the-
hair.
That's,
Oh, really?
That's what the Navajo Indians use.
But the
to-
rugs will last thousands of
Yeah.
years.
Really?
to make the rugs.
The oldest fabric that is in any museum that's ever been dug up is over 1,008 years old, and
Really?
it was wool.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
silk comes from silkworms.
Uh-huh.
There is a lady, she actually taught me to spin. She's from Canada, and she was a world-renowned silk expert. And anytime they found any kind of silk, they didn't know what it was, they'd send a sample of it to her, and she'd identify the silk.
Oh, wow.
And silk spins really fine. That little goat over there, if you took the down underneath him, when you comb him, that's cashmere.
Really?
That down undercoat of
So
a
the undercoat of a goat is cashmere.
Right. Cashmere goats don't do overly well in this part of the country because it's so hot.
Yeah.
So they don't get. Wool has lots of properties. Wool is warm, but Angora rabbit is 8 times warmer than wool. Alpaca is warmer than wool, and it's hypoallergenic. So a lot of people can wear alpaca that can't wear wool. A lot of people think they're allergic to wool, and what they're really allergic to is the process that the processors use because they put it in a vat and they put this really heavy detergent in it to break down the vegetation.
Okay.
And
Well, not just the vegetation, but feel this right here.
that's got
Okay, this has got lanolin in it, and if
Oh,
you feel my
yeah.
hands, they actually feel sticky.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so in 1 bottle of lotion, there's only a few drops of lanolin.
Really?
And this is solid 100% concentrate. So you'll be in wool, if they don't get all the lanolin out, you can actually be allergic to the lanolin.
Really?
Shearers wear long sleeves because their arms will be red and soaked with hives just from
Just
the
from the
lanolin.
lanolin? I'll be
And
back.
there's
So-
a process that you can use to extract the lanolin out of a raw fleece and then put it in your own homemade lotion.
Yeah.
Really?
But that's why she says, wool, that they use those harsh chemicals. They have to. This is
To break it
not.
down, to get
yeah,
it to the
this
point.
is. And my hands, years and years of doing this, it doesn't bother me.
But there's a lot of people that do think they're allergic to wool, but then they'll get some of our wool like that, but we've washed it and processed it ourselves.
Right.
We send it to a processor, and they can wear that or mess with it.
Okay.
So
So, rabbit here. To me, it's really fine. It's individual.
It is fine.
How do you get it from the loose hairs into a
you
thread?
don't wash it first.
Oh, really? Okay.
No, I did that.
So it actually, you started
You just-
out
you just-
twisting, or?
You just hold it in your hand.
Same
and
way
I
I'm
didn't bring
doing it
any.
here.
Yeah,
Okay.
I didn't bring
Same
any.
way I'm doing it here. Just grab it in your hand
Yeah,
and you pull it.
Wow.
and it
So-
just attaches itself.
Okay.
But it's
That's
very, very
incredible.
warm.
Is it? So llamas, how did those do?
I don't normally like llamas,
Okay.
but you have the coolest llama. It depends. I've seen some llamas that were just like at the Tulsa State Fair that were $150,000, and their hair was like Angora rabbit, and really long,
Right.
and wonderful. I did a trade with a lady on some llama, and I just couldn't hardly spin it. And I found out years later it was because instead of washing them, I used a powder,
Okay.
and so it was the buildup of the powder.
Powder inside the fur.
But there's all animals you can have. As I think you've probably found out, you can have sheep-born twins or triplets from the same mother, and they will feel differently.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nutrition, birthing, all that kind of stuff comes into play. So your fleece can change on a sheep from year to year, and your colored sheep will change colors.
Yeah. So when you start out and you're looking to start spinning, you obviously teach, and you're out of the Tulsa area?
Right, I'm in West Tulsa,
West
and I
Tulsa.
have wheels because when I first started to spin, there was nobody in town that you could try a spinning wheel,
Right.
and they're not cheap. And so the class comes, if you take a full-blown class, it comes with the wheel, or if you're thinking about it, come out to the house, we'll schedule a time, and you can try the different wheels. And don't feel like you have to buy a wheel from me, because everybody has a different idea about spinning wheels or what they want. I've had people go out and buy a spinning wheel to take my class because they didn't read that they could rent a wheel, and then they decided, I hate this.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's a lot of money to spend.
Right.
And the first spinning wheel I bought, had I been able to try different wheels, it's not the wheel I would have bought.
Really?
Yeah. So, there are different sizes, there's different techniques. You can find them used. I just challenge anybody who does to make sure they have someone go with them to look at it if they don't know anything about it, because missing parts can be expensive,
Right.
and some of the wheels aren't made anymore. So you'd have to know a woodworker that could do that kind of thing. But there's plans on the internet for making your own wheel if you're a good woodworker. I've seen people take bicycle tires and make wheels. You know, so
PVC
it's
pipe.
PVC
Really?
pipe. They're not selling wheels right now. There was a dealer that was made out of PVC pipe, and they were pretty economical.
But if you can go to Lowe's and get
Right,
PVC
but you can
pipe,
go to
Yeah.
Lowe's and
You can
it's
make
like
the
a
wheel,
bicycle
yeah.
tire and then the PVC pipe.
No kidding.
Yeah. So it's just what you want to do. There's no rules.
That's
you know.
nice. And see, that's one thing about this is the ability to learn to do a craft like this, or because really it's essential to clothing. I mean,
Yes.
without the ability to make these wheels before this, I mean, what did we have? You know, and to be able to have that thread and to be able to make the things that need to be made, you know, this is an art that needs to be carried on. And
And there's just something really satisfying about saying I made it.
Exactly.
I used to
Exactly.
work at a title company, and the head attorney was walking out the door one day, and he said, "Jane, I like your hat." And I said, "Thanks, I grew it." And just kept on walking, and he stopped and looked at me like, "Jane's lost it. She's just totally lost it."
So you can literally, or for the most part, any kind of hair.
You can
You can
spin
make it-
anything. You can spin cat hair, dog hair.
What's the most unusual hair you've ever done?
Well, there's a story to that.
Okay.
I had a friend that was in animal rescue, and Mike Tyson had a lion, and it got taken away from him.
Uh-huh.
And it went to the animal rescue, I think, out on the other side of Broken Arrow. And they had to give it medication to knock it out so they could treat it because
Right.
it had some medical issues. So she got me all three. They have three colors of hair. They have the light brown, dark brown, and black, and gave it to me in a bag. And so I was real notorious about it. I told her back, said, "What do you think it is?" And there's this one lady that was real skittish, and so she stuck her hand in that bag, and I said, "It's Mike Tyson hair," and she about died. I've spun bear.
Oh, wow.
Those are not fun. The lion was not fun. The wolf hair was pretty soft. It was downy. I've spun the
Camel,
yak,
buffalo.
camel, buffalo. Buffalo it takes a lot of processing. It's very expensive because it's really nasty and it comes off in clumps.
Oh,
so
yeah.
it has to be processed.
Do you ever spin any of that possum?
Yes, I've spun
possum,
Australian
chinchilla.
possum, chinchilla.
Cat,
Yeah, the normal,
cat, dog.
you know.
Wow. So there's a lot of opportunities to spin a lot of different things.
And it's come a long way since I started to spin. There's several teachers in the area that teach, and several places you can take classes. There's a festival in Kellyville the last weekend in July called Fiber Christmas in July that's free admission. There's a lady in Kellyville that's got the largest flock of hand spinning sheep in the state of Oklahoma. So there's lots of places to buy stuff, and it's a lot better than what it used to be. It's not as good as surrounding states, but it's a lot better than it used to be.
Well, that's something that, as more people learn, as more people, realize the need to learn. That to have people like you and groups like that can come together and show people the opportunity. Could you tell everyone, how to get a hold of you?
I am
about your classes?
Jane Deason, also known as Angorajane. I'm on Facebook, and my website is www.angorajanespinningwheelsandfibers.com. There's a link to all the classes, and we'll be out here at least once a month.
Great. All right. Well, thank you for taking the
All
time
right,
to show us
thanks.
what to do.
You did good, but we have to give you your first yarn.
All right.
It's a rule. You have to have your
Have
first
to have
yarn.
the first one?
Yeah.
All right. Look at that. I made that.
He did.
Well, I spun
He
it.
did good.
I'm going to make you a pair of socks with that. Is that all right?
There'd be a little bitty pair of socks.
Maybe a toe. Maybe a toe.
Okay, I will wear them on my one toe.
Do you have a dog?
Do what?
Do you have a dog?
I do. I have several of them.
Okay, you have enough there to make those little bow ties for the dog.
Oh, there you go.
Well, it's a completed project.
There you go,
So
exactly.
you can make a little bow tie for him.
Exactly.
There you go.
Thank you so much.
Thank
All right.
you.
Guys, thank you for joining us, and we appreciate Angorajane for coming out to the farmers market. If you guys want to take lessons from her, we'll have a link to everything on our website and on this video down below, so you can check that out. Be sure and like and subscribe, and follow Angorajane on Facebook so you can get all the updates
All right.
and go to her for class. I want to thank you guys for taking a
Thank
minute.
you.
Show us how it's done.
Give me a call and we'll teach you.
All right, great. Thanks.
American homestead.